How about Shemi Awashai, man? Psalms chapter 84 and verse 10. For a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. So one day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Let me repeat that again. One single day in the kingdom of heaven is better than 1,000 of your best days on this side, man. Okay? Where things were better for you. Moments that you can reminisce on and say, yeah, that was a good day. The kingdom of heaven blows it out the park, man. It blows it out the water. Just one day. Not to mention, the Heavenly Father, He's going to stretch out the time. He's going to expand the time so you can enjoy your immortality. You can enjoy your life. And the Lord said in Wisdom of Solomon, He created the Israelite man to be an image of his own eternity, man. We're going to be a likeness of his own eternity, man. We're going to be many most highs, man. We're going to be many most highs. Okay? God's on earth under Yahweh Shemi Awashai.
I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.
And also what's going to make us gods? These laws, statutes, commandments, and us judging by the laws, statutes, commandments, but also these laws being in our inner parts, making us those perfect judges. Not to mention, we experience these different reincarnations in this wicked flesh, so we know how to judge the flesh. We know how to judge this body because we've been in this body many times. Okay? But once again, the kingdom of heaven is going to be patterned after the mind of Yahweh Shemi Awashai, man. A righteous paradigm.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful lake out there pushing His word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. All right, and what I want to get into tonight, dealing with symptoms of collapse. All right, and this is what we're witnessing, with this current rulership of Esau Edom. Okay, with Babylon, which is America. Okay, Babylon the Great, which is America, in the scriptures, okay, is at the forefront of this collapse. All right, now before we get into it, what I want to get into is this word symptoms, and link it up with some precepts. All right, and I have a few videos, okay, that I want to go into. I got about 2 videos I want to go into. Now, when you go into this word symptoms, all right, just a quick, all right, Google search. It says a physical or mental feature which is regarded as indicating a condition or disease, particularly such a feature, all right, that is apparent to the patient. Okay, and when you go into the synonyms of that word, what do you have? The manifestation, indication, indicator, a sign, a mark. Okay, a sign or a mark, an indicator, manifestation. Okay, and what we're seeing according to the spirit is the manifestation of the end of an empire. All right, the symptoms of this man's end are now showing, because, you can feel, a particular way, you might feel off, okay? And if you continue on, all right, and don't get better, what happens then? Your body begins to show symptoms, and that's the body, pretty much flashing, urgency indicators like, look, this is urgent. You might have a massive headache, okay? A runny nose, or, this is your body showing sign like, look, this situation is urgent, okay? Well, we're seeing all the symptoms of a declining empire, okay, with America and how it's being ran and the way things are going. Not only America, but this whole global system, okay? So you go into definition two, it says a sign of existence of something, especially an undesirable situation. Okay, and we see these devils are in an undesirable situation. Okay, because as he's getting closer to his NWO, he's being more exposed. All right, there's a lot of buck up, to his rulership. All right, he's wearied in his council. He's been given this hell of a task to try to pull off. You can tell that he's, anxious. All right, Russian. He's tacky. Okay, and these are all symptoms, okay, of a declining empire. Okay, and we're going to get into these things now. Let's get into some precepts. Okay, real quick. Um, let's go from there and let's get some precepts to back that up. All right, that this man is showing symptoms. Okay, first off, when you go here, okay, there's your Howell Shai. When you go into Matthew, all right, 16. Okay, Matthew 16:1, as he's speaking to, these wicked scribes and Pharisees, okay, because they was carnal, they wasn't in tune in the spirit, okay, and their mind was on earthly things. You see, the wicked scribes and Pharisees, all right, their ambition was based on this, the Roman, okay, the ancient, pagan Roman Empire continuing on. Like today, if your ambition, okay, is based on America continuing on, well, you're not in tune to the symptoms, okay? You really don't see the symptoms because, you're, so tapped into trying to forge yourself in this society that you're missing the symptoms, okay? But being in the spirit, see, we see the symptoms in the spirit, and then we hear particular things, different, geopolitics, war analysts, economic analysts, and it just confirmed what we already, been put on by the spirit, okay, of the symptoms that we will see happening, okay, the signs, the marks. That's why you go to Matthew 16:1, said the Pharisees also with the Sadducees came and tempting, desire him that he would show them a sign from heaven. So they was asking for a sign, okay, and he was the sign. The fact that Yahweh Shah was present and on the earth, okay, was a sign, all right, of serious prophecy, man. Okay, so they're still asking for some type of sign when your sign was right in front of them. Okay, just like today, as the Lord has raised up the prophets, well, that's the sign. The fact that the Lord, has orchestrated, the prophets to come on the scene in this generation, that's the sign, okay, itself. All right, and then you go into what the prophecies are speaking on. It's like, what miraculous sign do you need? For these men to come from these, all these different backgrounds and unlearned, and okay, to be going into what they're going into, then that's the miracle. That's the sign of the times that we're in. Okay, verse 2, it says, he answered and said unto them, when it is evening, ye say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. Oh, you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? Okay, and we go into this word signs in the Greek, okay, which, we get into this word often, but it means different things in different contexts. So when you go into, all right, this word here, signs, which is what Simeon, which we know is also another word for the miracles that this devil will be pulling off, which that in itself is a sign of the times that we in. All right, the fact that this devil is allowed to, do these, miracles on the left hand side, well, it shows the time that we in. Okay, but you go here, it says a sign, okay, a mark or a token. Okay, and we just read the symptoms. Okay, when you go into the synonyms of symptoms, what does it say? Is an indicator, a sign, or a mark. Okay, it indicates a sign or a mark. All right. So here it is. We're seeing all these symptoms of an end of an empire. Okay, and we should fully be aware of what time we in. Okay, and you go down definition 1. It says of signs pretending remarkable events soon to happen. Okay, and we know these are all the signs leading up to what? The second coming of Yahushua. Okay, he gave indicators, he gave signs, he gave tokens. Okay, he gave the symptoms of what would be going on before his return. Okay, listen to this. Matthew 24:3, it says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? So, what were they asking for? A sign, a token, a mark. Okay, what would be an indicator of the end? Okay, so you go into that word sign here. All right, more than likely, all right, it's going to be the same word. You see that? Simeon. Okay, so they're asking for indicators. What's going to indicate? What's going to distinguish, okay, the time of your coming back? Okay, because there's no exact date given because only the Father knows. Okay, and Yahushua was privy to the what? The symptoms, okay, the indicators of what will be happening. All right, verse 4 says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am anointed, and shall deceive, all right, many. Okay, as you have, because you don't have a lot of people saying that they're Yahushua, but you have people, these platforms as if, they're chosen. Okay, as if they just got this profound, divine knowledge of how things should be, and everybody trying to prophesy, and everybody trying to, well, they're just on some carnal. You got niggas saying trust in Trump, and like they got this knowledge and they deep, and this the culture that we live in. Everybody's profound, deep, and got the understanding that there's needed, to to be increased. Okay, and this is the culture that we live in. So you have all these these podcasts, anointed ones. Okay, and that's an indicator of the sign. All right, everybody's trying to come in this state as the chosen one. Okay, it says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Is that not what we're hearing? Okay, is that not the headline? Okay, of daily news, some type of conflict. Okay, did not these small hands in Iran just lock horns? Okay, was there not a lot of rumors of different players getting involved in their war? Okay, it says for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Yeah, because we're seeing these things, we're seeing tensions rise. Okay, we're seeing conflicts increase. We're seeing these things. Okay, but it is not the end just because a war, all right, isolated war breakout. It's not the end, but it's a symptom of the end, because eventually, all right, these isolated events, all right, are going to turn to a global war. Okay, so the fact that we're seeing these off and on wars is a fact, is a indicator of the times that we in. It said, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Okay, these are the beginning of sorrows, man. Earthquakes on the rise, pestilence, always some type of new all right, ease. on the lookout for it. Always a different, variant and strand. And, okay. People are being priced out of food, and eventually, soon people won't be have access to food. Okay, which is going to invoke famine. So we're seeing all these symptoms increase, man. Because symptoms get worse. Okay, you see, more symptoms said. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. So even when it gets to the point to where the persecution, okay, of the faith, okay, which is devil, we know he's gearing up, as he put the tribes on front street, with these latest antics, okay, with the deportation. We know who he's really coming after. All right, like Trump said, look, we got to get, homegrown criminals out of here too. And just like what Yahweh Shah was numbered amongst, okay, the criminals, man. Okay, and that's a part of the cup we're going to have to drink in this time. So when these things, happen, we know what these are symptoms of his coming. We shouldn't buckle. We shouldn't, fold, because these are all symptoms of his coming. Okay, it says, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Okay, which this is what we're seeing now. Okay, this grimy society. So those are examples, of symptoms. Yahweh Shah was running it down. Okay, and to be able to be in tune with these things, you have to be in the light. Okay, St. John 8 and 12. All right, and then we'll segue to some videos. All right, that I got. Okay, when you go to St. John chapter 8, all right, in verse 12, and it says, then spake Yahweh Shah again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Okay, so Yahweh Shah is the light of the world, and that world is speaking of Israel. All right, and there's a remnant in Israel, all right, that Yahweh Shah, he's allowed to come into this light. Because there's a lot of people there in darkness. They're not privy to the symptoms, man. Okay, they're what you call as Yahweh Shah said in Luke 21. Okay, they're entangled in the darkness, man. Their mind is only here. Is the end and beginning of their thinking is based on this society continuing on. But we know, all right, we don't really begin to live until this place collapses. All right. And how do we get that understanding? When you go into the word light, let's get this word light. Okay. We'll get into the word light, which goes into Fosi.
Strong's G 5457. Phos.
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 Okay, in the Greek. Okay. Now, when you go down metaphorically, okay, to reason, to mind, all right. But then you go into it says of truth, all right, metaphorically, this definition too, of truth and its knowledge together with the spiritual purity associated with it. Okay, the power of understanding, especially moral and spiritual truth. So we see the symptoms in the spirit, okay, of a declining empire. The Lord, through the Holy Spirit has given us the understanding of these things. When we're in the light, okay, see, people are just catching up to things that, the apostles have been saying, brothers have been saying, okay? So people are just now catching up to these things, man. And now the talking point is prophecy, man. You can't go into the news and really, all these different, alternative news sites, the majority of them, man, they have to mention prophecy somewhere. It's to the point that you can't mention what's going on and not speak on prophecy, all right, in some, all right, in some degree. Okay? And this is showing you that the symptoms are getting so bad that the only way to even begin to explain these things is through prophecy, man. Okay? Now, let's go here, to Wadi Yahweh Bashim al Shah. for being in the light. But let's get this first video here, because these devils, no matter which way they try to spin this thing, it's going to end the same. All right. And this latest thing with the small hats and America, this this attempt that Iran, it showed a lot, and it took this thing to another phase, because it pushed Iran closer into the arms of Russia. Okay, Russia is beginning to arm Iran, all right, more, okay, with defense systems, okay, and offensive systems, okay. Iran is in talk with China, to get, fighter jets and, okay, particular things, you see. So this alliance of Russia, China, and Iran has tightened, okay, in the aftermath. And this is all bad news for Esau's empire, okay. And that's why you see these devils, they're constantly, trying the waters, but then it start going away, all right, it's not good, okay. And this devil knows that. And see, you got to understand, these elites, these higher ups, man, you best believe they're listening to these lessons, man, and they're hearing how it ends, okay. When they make certain moves and it begins to go in the way, okay, or what the spirit has the prophet saying, you see these devils, they let off, man, okay. But it's gonna come a time where the Lord is gonna force them to go through with it, man. And it's gonna be it for these devils, okay. So let's play this, all right, because he's just gonna expound on the aftermath, and where this has left things, after this skirmish with the small hats in Iran, all right. And he's going to say something, okay, around the 9-minute mark, okay, that inspired this lesson. So let's let this play, okay.
The Jewish part of Israel is 7 million people. Iran has 90 million people. You don't do that. You don't attack a country of 90 million with 7 million. And you sure don't do it while you're busy fighting a war in Gaza, which the whole world condemns you for. And Iran has very close relations with Russia and very good relations with China. What are you doing? The act was an act of desperation. The hope of Mr. Netanyahu, obvious to those who follow, was to draw the United States in. And Mr. Trump, when he listened apparently to Mr. Netanyahu and didn't listen to all the voices, including inside the Republican Party, that said don't do that, did it. Whereupon Mr. Trump discovered that
imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
What he had unleashed was a conflict between Israel and Iran that almost everyone other than the American media, who are useless in this situation, in a way that exceeds bias and exceeds jingoism. This is straight out propagandistic nonsense. Everyone else in the world realizes that the supports Iran has in its own country and its border with Russia and its treaties with Russia and its support from China versus Israel is a slam dunk of the worst sort. It's not a sustainable arrangement. And so we now see the backtracking of a desperate Trump who has to try to call off what he just turned on. Yes, he's a herky-jerky leader. Everyone knows that now. He displays that all the time. But that should not obscure us. What we're seeing here is the herky-jerky behavior of someone who's trapped. There is no future for this whole business until you sit down and try to find one. There may be one, but warfare, no, that's not a solution. That's not sustainable. That's a losing proposition. And it was before he dropped the bombs on Tehran and the nuclear bases. All of Europe had dozens of commentators, just to conclude, who enjoyed pointing out that even according to the International Atomic Energy Commission, the refined, the enriched uranium and the mechanisms to further enrich it, to make it, if they were in those three places, had been removed from those three places. So that even if your bombs got there, which was an open question, this kind of warfare hasn't been done before with bombs like that. And the Iranians had put all of this in the middle of a mountain. So it was unknown. But the point was, it wouldn't matter. They have the scientists, they have the laboratories, they have the experience, and they have the uranium. What are you doing in that situation?
So you see these devils, they was able to jump on the media, on Western media after this happened and proclaim some type of victory. All right. But people that's really in this world, okay, they understand the gimmicks and the games of Western media and the politics of America. They see that this was a very weak sign from the West. Okay. The way, America did that empty strike on Tehran and then jumped on, all right, the news and called for a plea. Okay. We seen the West, cop a plea. You see, what they did in a way, is to show strength. But people that's really in this world, they understand how war goes, how politics goes, how propaganda goes. They see like this was a weak move, man. Okay? And they see that, look, war not the answer. They see that, America's been able to throw its weight around, for decades. And now it's like, that's not the answer anymore. That's not going to be the play. Okay? And what we're seeing now, okay, is these devils trying to find what angle to take moving forward. Okay, they want to prevent the decline. They know America being destroyed is the beginning of Esau's end. Okay, because America has been what? This devil's hammer, all right, militarily and economically. Okay, the way that he's been able to enchant the nation was through America. Okay, so America has been, okay, the standard of Esau's kingdom, all right, for these past few decades, and now that standard is being dismantled. Okay, and you go here, it's the brother beyond Yasha'Allah, Revelation 18:21. It says, "And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, all right, and shall be found no more at all." Okay, so America, was birthed, through violence. All right, and it's going to be taken out through violence. It was birthed, and it sustains itself through violence. So the Lord is going to allow this place to be taken out through violence, man. Okay, and we'll witness it. Lord will. We're those men. We get to see these things on the front row. We're the hopeful elect. We get to see these things on the front row until this actual destruction, and we get to see it from the chairs, man. If we endure, okay. So let's let this play some more.
Showing that you can bomb, everybody knows that. Showing that you will in this situation, given Ukraine, there's not much doubt about that either. So this was very impulsive, but that's not the important point. It's the larger historical dead end that's being acted out. Yeah, they're desperate. Yeah, it's herky-jerky. What else do you expect once you understand that they're stuck in a
the easiest microscope that I have ever used.
Colonial project that is an absolute no-win situation for Israel and the West. The only sad thing is they don't want to see it. They can't see it any more than they can see what they're doing in Gaza and how the whole world looks at it. And you have to explain that Jewish people are no more intrinsically violent than anybody else, and they're no more blind than anybody else. So you have to ask the question, under what pressure would people like that, and I won't even add who themselves know from their own grandparents what it's like to be on the wrong end of that kind of a situation, even they, you have to explain that, and you answer it by saying when people are put in unbearable, contradictory situations, their normal ways of looking at the world, of commiserating with other human beings, disappear, and they act like cornered animals with a level of frustration and desperation that usually ends up putting them in an even worse position. The United States is a declining empire. And what you see week after week, and now year after year, are the symptoms, the signs of that. And let me give you some examples. Israel.
And going back, as I said earlier, this, is a part of the video that inspired the lessons. Okay, this would inspire the lesson of tonight. Listen to him speak about, we're watching an empire in decline. All right. And we're seeing the symptoms of decline. Okay. The fact, that you have the Houthi rebels, bold enough to go head up, with the American Navy in the Red Sea. Okay. The fact, all right, that you had, Iran, pummel Tel Aviv. Okay. This is different, okay, phase in prophecy, man. So where these nations have been emboldened, okay, and it's the Spirit of the Lord is driving this, man. Okay, and the fact that these things are being done, this is a symptoms of a collapse. Okay, when the empire is being tried, all right, by inferior, okay, nations, man. Okay, and it shows that there's a lack of respect for the empire, and it's only going to increase, man. Okay, so let's let him speak about a few symptoms, then we'll segue to another video.
Israel is a very small country. Israel is trying to do something which was feasible 2 centuries ago. It's called settler colonialism. It's when you move a group of Europeans into a non-European area, you exclude the people one way or another, and you basically populate that area with the arriving Europeans instead of whoever lived there before. It worked 2.5 centuries ago because that's what the United States is. And we went to the final solution of the settler colonial project, which is literally exterminating all of those people. What Hitler did to Jews and gypsies and communists and socialists was not new. It was the repeat of what had been done by Germans, but also by lots of other Europeans all over the world. The first book I ever wrote as a young man was a study of British colonialism in Kenya, in which I studied what the British did from the time they arrived to the time that an uprising of the African people there, known in the world as the Mau Mau Revolution, drove them out.
What if you could earn commission simply by offering?
So he spoke on something called European colonization, in which when they speak about European colonization, that's the earth, being given into the hand of the wicked. Okay, that the devil, was able to go, all right, and establish colonies in other people's land, okay, and began to populate that land and began to dominate and enslave, all right, the people, okay, that's on their land. Now, when you go into European colonization, just a quick, all right, AI overview. So when you go into it, all right, we're gonna get some precepts, okay, that go into these things. All right, the scripture describe, the colonization, all right, of Esau Edom. You know, they call it European colonization, but it's the colonization of Esau Edom. Okay, is the devil ruling the earth with the sword? You know, his blessing. Okay, it says European colonization referred to the historical process where European nations established settlements and exerted control over territories outside of Europe. Okay, and America is what an extension of what British. Okay, it's just extension of Great Britain. Okay, even you go into those horns in the book of Daniel, the 7th chapter. Okay, those 3 horns. The Spanish, the British, the French. Where you look at an old map of America, and it's divided between the French, the Spanish, okay, and the British. Okay, with the British, the 13 colonies in the east coast of America. All right, the French, which had a lot of the South and the Midwest. All right, and then you had the Spanish, on the West Coast. Okay, that's why you still see those influences, okay, of European colonies, okay, in America. All right, you had the East Coast, named after a lot of British towns and cities. Okay, New York, where it was the old York in Britain. Okay, New Hampshire, where it was the whole old Hampshire, Britain. Okay, you have in the French. Okay, you go down to Louisiana, whether you have Baton Rouge. Okay, was just a French word, baton or baton. We get the word baton from. Okay, means stick, and rouge means red. Okay, New Orleans. Okay, French inspired. Okay, and when you go to the West Coast, the Arizonas and Californias, and all right, a lot of those towns and streets and counties are named after what? All right, Spanish. They're influenced by Spanish. Okay, so we have to understand that these devils, as they've been given the earth, Europe, okay, in which these devils, would come back in power, through conquering Europe, from Jake, beginning with the the fall of the Moors in 1492. Okay, then you had the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Okay, which that was mainly in Turkey and what they call Western, or what they call Western Asia. Okay, but as these devils, begin to take down their region of the earth and come back into power. But when they establish themselves in Europe, they begin to what? Branch out. Okay, Columbus and the conquistadors. That's a what Spanish word. There was a Spanish coming to the Americas, man. All right, the French, going to the Isles of, all right, what they call Haiti, and these things. Now the British, they began to come to the, Americas. Okay, set up colonies and enslave what? The indigenous people. Okay, and as they began to colonize, they brought in what? Slaves. Okay, to work the lands which they colonized. Okay, either they would export slaves. That's why you had the transatlantic slave trade. There was Esau exporting slaves to his colonies. Okay, in the islands and in mainly North America, man. Okay, or they would enslave the indigenous people. Okay, in the lands in which they would colonize, man. Mainly seen that in Africa. Okay, which is a lot of Jake there. Okay, but the devil, he would do that in India. Elon, like he did that to the earth. Now we got the worst because of who we are. Okay, and there's still an emphasis, in this system, to keep Jake destroyed. Okay, but this devil, he has carved up the earth to himself. And now the earth is revolting. That's what we're seeing. Okay, it says resulting in significant transformation in the landscape, societies, and economies of the colonized regions. This period, largely between the 15th and 20th centuries, involved both the establishment of colonies and the imposition of political, economic, and social systems by European powers. Okay? And he goes into motivation, says European colonization was driven by a complex interplay of factors, including economic exploitation, access to resources and new markets, political ambition, expansion of power and influence, and religious motivations, all right, which that came and spread that madness, okay, of plantation Christianity, okay, missionary work and conversion of populations, man, because they understood, they use religion, all right, as mind control, okay. That's why in Christianity, okay, he's the prophet, he's the Most High, he's the Messiah, okay. He used, the Bible to push Edomite supremacy, okay. So when people look at, going against the so-called white man, it's like you're going against, the people of God, like you're going against the Most High himself, okay? And see, these things are wearing off now. Even his psychological warfare, is being challenged. His military dominance is being challenged, okay? And now his psychological warfare, that's why scripture say our weapons of warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to pulling down strongholds, man. Well, who set up the strongholds? Okay, this devil. Okay, and these things are being taken down as this whole kingdom is being dismantled, man. Okay, it says European colonization spanned across the globe, all right, because the earth was given into the hand of the wicked, man. Okay, encompassing the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Australia. European powers employed various methods to establish and maintain control, all right, including direct rule, settlement by the Europeans, and the establishment of spheres of influence. It says colonization had profound and lasting impacts on the colonized territories, including colonies were often exported for their resources and labor, leading to economic dependency and undevelopment. Okay, and Esau, he'll flip the script. Here it is. He'll go extract the resources, okay, from a particular region, and he'll throw up, a movie theater and a few hotels and, some bars in the spot, and say, well, look, we've upgraded these people. Okay, this man to take, $200 billion worth of resources, okay, and spend $50 million in, infrastructure development in their city, and say, look, we've upgraded these people. Okay, they was lost before. They was savages. They didn't know. They didn't even have running water. We don't know how they were surviving. Okay, but we came and saved the day. Okay, and what does it do? It makes these dependent. It makes these nations, okay, dependent on these devils for economy, because these devils have stole the resources in which these nations, were supposed, all right, to live off of, man. Okay, you see, with Libya, during the time of Muammar Gaddafi, okay, how the Libyan citizens benefited off their oil. They was getting direct deposits. Okay, it wasn't like today, Trump. They say, well, Trump saved America, $2 billion. He saved this. He just made this. And niggas are celebrating, but nigga, you not getting no direct deposits from these so-called victories, these economical victories of Trump. You niggas don't benefit on nothing, okay, in America, man. Okay? But you had these other nations, they had systems set up to where their citizens directly benefit, free land for anyone, that want to start a family, housing, okay, $5,000, dollars a child, and just things to help people, all right, to aid people, all right, in winning. Okay, and they could do that when they was in control of their resources. But what happened? This is just an example. They killed Muammar Gaddafi. Okay, and now Libya, which was $150 billion, they had that in their reserves. Now they owe 94 billion. And guess who they owe? All right, Esau, the bankers. Okay, and now Libya is what what the devil Trump would say is a shithole country. All right, it says social and cultural changes. Colonization resulted in the imposition of European social structures, languages, and cultural norms, often suppressing or displacing indigenous cultures, often suppressing and displacing indigenous cultures, man. All right, what we're seeing over there in which the land don't belong to none of them niggas, man. Okay, but we see an example of this in what's happening in Palestine. Okay, suppressing and displacing. Okay, and then what we see the most over here in North America, man. Here it is. You had a whole nation full of people, whole civilization of the tribes, the northern tribes. Okay, now to see a Gadite, okay, it's like seeing an alien, man. You see a Gadite, okay, at the Quick Trip, he's like, damn. It's like you seen the alien, man. But here it is. They, okay, were the only people here. All right, the northern tribes was the only people here at one time. Now, it's a rarity, man. Especially, with Gad. Okay, which they suppressed and and displaced, but it was all prophecy, man. Gad, the troops should overcome. What he should overcome at the end. Okay, it says European powers redrew political boundaries, often without regard for existing ethnic and cultural divisions, leading to a long-lasting political instability in many post-colonial states, man. Okay, so they come, they get, sellouts amongst these different nations, and it creates division. Okay, you have those that want to keep the tradition, and you have those that want to, get in bed with the beast. Okay, and it causes division. Okay, uproars. You see, it says colonization led to significant environmental changes, including deforestation, resource depletion. Okay, resource depletion, and the introduction of new species, man. Okay, so this devil, through his colonization, man, has been a terror in the earth. All right, and like we were saying, the prophecies speak about this man doing these things, man. Matter of fact, okay. Oh man, this is heavy what the brother got. This is the brother Bayan Yasha'Allah, Sirach 36 and 26. It says, who would trust a thief well appointed that skippeth from city to city? So who will believe a man that have no house, and lodge whosoever the night taketh him, man? So this man is a thief well appointed that's skipping from city to city, man. The scripture say he will be a vagabond. Okay, in the earth, man. You see, and this is what this man does. All right, he just on a tour, and the scriptures say this man does nothing but steal, kill, and destroy. That's all this nigga does, man, in his rulership. Okay, but this man really has no dwelling, because he's really not. And this is why this man is going to be eradicated from the face of the earth, man, because he really has no true dwelling place, man. He's just a goddamn wandering thief, man. All right? He's just a wandering, violent thief. Okay? And all he knows is to take and destroy. You see? Well, the Lord is going to stop this man. All right? And this is why we see his empire declining. Let's go here. Habakkuk 2:15 said, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look upon their nakedness, man. Okay, because this devil, he'll present. Okay, here it is. He indoctrinates, violence. He funds, revolts against governments and coups and all these different things. Okay, he created nigger culture, through his enchantments, through, the music, okay, through the atmosphere of poverty and drugs and guns. Okay, so this devil causes all this uproar in the background, all throughout the earth, and he, okay, turns the camera on. He doesn't have the camera on when he's indoctrinating you, when he's dropping off the guns, okay, when he's when his CIA, okay, is instigating, division amongst these governments and, causing government collapsing. He doesn't have the camera on then, okay, but the aftermath, that's when he turns on the camera. Okay, and be like, look at these people, they're inhumane. All right, they need us to come in and civilize the situation. Even with Trump and his latest stint, with Iran, he took the stance as if he had to come in and civilize, okay, the situation between the small hats and Iran. Okay, but when this devil, here it is, this devil is the orchestrator of all these things in the background, man. Okay? Well, see, he turns the camera on at the reaction. Okay? He doesn't turn the camera on when, he's orchestrating the madness. You see? Habakkuk 2:16 said, thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory, man. Okay? And now, things are becoming common knowledge of this devil's wickedness, man. A lot of his past is coming up. Okay? What this devil has done, what he's doing currently, what he plans on doing, all these things are becoming the talking points of society, man. Okay? And this devil is an absolute madman on the loose, as Beyond Yasha said. Okay? So let's go here. All right, because as it talks about, the colonization, well, now these nations are beginning to buck up. Okay, so let's go here and watch this video, and this really going to go into the fall of an empire, man. And we're seeing this, to the T. All right, well, we're seeing what he's speaking on. All right, he's going to compare it to, guess what? All right, the ancient Roman Empire, which this is Rome revived. Okay, and they back on the same tip. Okay, it's gonna lead to the same thing, except much worse. All right, this time the Lord gonna shake the earth. All right, when Rome falls, man, when America, okay, is erased. Okay, so let's play this. All right, and you're gonna see, all right, that we're, all right, that this kingdom is on a path. Okay, of decline. Okay, so let's play this.
History has proven that no empire lasts forever. The Romans ruled for over a millennium, the Ottomans spanned continents, and the USSR shaped modern geopolitics, yet all of them fell. Today, the US empire is showing the same warning signs. While it may still appear powerful, the cracks are undeniable. The downfall of an empire doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, and the symptoms are already here. At its height, Rome was the most powerful civilization in the world. But its collapse was slow and came from within. The gap between the rich and the poor widened as elites indulged in extravagant wealth, while common citizens barely survived. The economy polarized, the middle class vanished, and the government struggled to maintain stability. Corruption, high taxation, peasant revolts, and over-reliance on enslaved labor only made things worse. The US is now experiencing a similar decline. The American dream once symbolized prosperity for anyone who worked hard, owning a home, raising a family, and achieving financial stability. But today, that dream is fading. The middle class is shrinking as wages stagnate, while inflation and living costs skyrocket. Housing has become unaffordable. Healthcare is out of reach for many, and corporations profit while the working class struggles. The wealth gap in the US has reached historic levels. Billionaires amass enormous fortunes while the average worker can barely keep up with expenses. This disparity has fueled resentment, protests, and increasing political polarization. More and more Americans feel disillusioned with the system, realizing that democracy and equal opportunity are illusions designed to keep them compliant. The Ottoman Empire thrived for centuries by maintaining loyalty among its diverse subjects. Its strength wasn't just in military power, but in diplomacy and cultural influence. But as nationalism spread, people stopped identifying with the empire and sought independence, causing its control to weaken. The US built its empire after World War II through soft power, positioning itself as the champion of democracy, economic progress, and cultural influence. American music, films, and brands dominated the world, and institutions like the United Nations, the IMF, and the World Bank were shaped to serve US interests. But this influence is fading. At home, faith in American democracy has eroded. Protest over racial injustice, economic inequality, and political corruption have exposed deep societal fractures. The country once known for its freedoms and human rights is now synonymous with police brutality, mass surveillance, and rigged political systems. Abroad, the US is no longer the respected leader it once was. It has waged destructive wars, funded oppressive regimes, and interfered in other nations' politics. The hypocrisy of preaching democracy while supporting dictators and committing war crimes has made it difficult for other nations to take US rhetoric seriously. Countries that once followed America's lead are now seeking alternatives, forging new alliances and economic partnerships outside of US influence. The Soviet Union never saw itself as an empire, but in reality, it functioned like one, using military power, ideology, and economic control to keep its satellite states in check. But maintaining this vast system was costly. Wars like Afghanistan drained its economy, while citizens at home struggled with poverty. The empire became unsustainable, and by the late 1980s, it collapsed. The US is following the same trajectory. Trillions of dollars have been spent on wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond. Wars that have brought destruction and chaos, but little strategic benefit. The country continues to fund Ukraine's war against Russia and may soon get involved in a Taiwan-China conflict. The US maintains over 700 military bases worldwide and spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. Yet, despite this spending, America has not won a major war in decades. Meanwhile, Americans back home face increasing economic hardship. Public services remain underfunded, infrastructure is decaying, and millions struggle to afford basic necessities. The government prioritizes military spending while its own people suffer, a pattern seen in many declining empires throughout history. The recent US support for Israel's actions in Gaza has further damaged its global reputation. Billions of taxpayer dollars have been used to fund a war widely condemned as genocide, shattering any remaining illusions of American moral superiority. Even among US allies, faith in American leadership is rapidly declining. The US empire has dominated world affairs for decades, controlling global finance, trade, and politics. But the world is changing. A growing number of nations are moving away from the US-led system, choosing to trade in different currencies, form new military alliances, and create independent financial institutions. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is challenging Western economic dominance, while countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia are seeking alternatives to US influence. The systems that have upheld US dominance, its financial institutions, military alliances, and global trade structures are unsustainable. They depend on exploitation, economic coercion, and military threats. But as the world shifts towards a multipolar order, these tactics are becoming less effective. Empires do not fall in a single day. They decline gradually as their foundations weaken. The US is in the midst of that decline. Internal economic hardship, loss of global influence, military overreach, and increasing resistance to its rule are all signs of an empire in decay. The question is not if the US will fall, it is how fast it will happen.
And this is all giving validation of prophecy, because he says not a thing of if, it's how fast. Well, let's get into some scriptures, man. Okay, let's go into some precepts. All right, you go into the book of Job, 21. All right, I believe by the 14th verse. Okay, and this is the mind of Esau Edom. Okay, and this devil's, wicked, mindset. Okay, the anti-Messiah, mindset. Okay, this is what has gotten him. Okay, this is the book of Job 21. Okay, and 14 it said, therefore they say unto the Most High, depart from us, for we desire not the knowledge of thy ways. Okay, and this devil runs the earth. Okay, and here it is. This man has been given. He's been given all the resources to do right. Esau has all the resources to do right. It's him that's the problem. Okay, he has the technology. He has the all these different things that he can make life way more easy on everyone, man. Okay, and still be, good. Still be way ahead. Okay, but this devil is just not letting him to do right. Okay, so it ain't that he doesn't have the resources. No, it's just this devil is wicked. Okay, and he has a mind that's adverse to Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. All right, and no kingdom ever has lasted. Okay, that has ruled outside. Okay, of the way of righteousness, man. Even us. All right, that's why we in captivity now. Okay, because of our disobedience, man, to Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. Okay, so how much more this devil? What's going to be his end? You see, the Lord created the earth to be ruled in one way. Okay, anything outside of that, it might have its prime, its golden age, its heyday, and it might have its few highlights, but it's not going to last. Okay, the scriptures go into how what righteousness is immortality, man. All right, and that's why the Lord, as we're changed, we're going to be perfected, man. We're going to be righteous forever because we're going to rule forever, man. Okay, but you go into the mind of this devil. It says, "Why is the Almighty?" Well, it says, "What is the Almighty that we should serve Him, and what profit should we have if we pray unto Him?" Because in their mind, they've been winning on the left hand side. So why would why Esau, his mind, like, why would he submit himself? Like, why would I submit myself, to righteousness when I've been winning in wickedness, man? Okay, that's why this devil is doubling down. The fact that he's trying to pull this off, man, I can't say it enough. The fact that this devil is attempting this, and this is a thought in his mind, shows you how off he is, man, to go against Yahweh Shem Al-Shai. Okay? It says, lo, their good is not in their hand. The counsel of the wicked is far from me. Okay? And this is a generation, all right, that knoweth not Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. They don't understand the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right? And it's because of the wicked. Their counsel, their reasoning is far from the Most High. Okay? And as the people, as the ruler, so are the people. So this devil has created an atmosphere where there's no reverence, okay, for Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. And that's why he's going to show, all right, in a major way. He's going to show power in a major way. Okay? And America is going to be, okay, the the example set. Okay? What the Lord does to America is going to be a great example. Okay? It's going to echo throughout the earth, man, just like he did in ancient Egypt. Said this new Egypt is going to be far worse. It said, how often is the candle of the wicked put out, and how oft coming their destruction upon them, the Most High distributed sorrows in His anger. So how often, does the Lord, have to destroy a wicked empire? Okay, and like I say, we're seeing the empire in decline, and Esau, Edom is not the first, but he's going to be the last empire, all right, of the heathen, man. Okay, you see, with this devil, he wasn't the first of these wicked empires. It's just America's turn. Okay, a 1044, our brothers are 144. All right, it's just America's turn. Okay, America had this heyday, its prime, and its different contributions, and highlight tape. Okay, but now, all right, we're at the time where the Lord is finna put out wickedness in the earth, man. Okay, it said, verse 18 said, they are as stubble before the wind, and as chaff that the storm carried away, man. And we often talk about, the unfairness of this devil's economy. We go into, all right, how it's very imbalanced. Okay, and that's, it's a cause of a lot of tension in the earth. And the devil can't help himself, man. Esau can't help himself. When he gets into power, he gets this authority, he gets this money, he can't help himself. Esau, the original nigga with money, man. Okay, he's the original nigga with money, and as he, coming to, his power in this time, he can't help himself but just to screw over people, man. Just to mess people over. That's going to happen. It only gets worse. You see, these super rich and these elites, and they don't give a damn about you people, man. They don't care about your day to day. Remember, you're just a cog in the machine, okay? And what this has led to a very corrupt society, and it's going to lead to its end. So, all right, let's get this. Proverbs 11:5, it said, the godly, all right, are directed by honesty. The wicked fall beneath their load of sin. And see, this devil has piled up sin after sin, okay, upon himself. And now, all right, he's under their load. Okay? And when you read this, verse 6, it said, the godliness of good people rescues them. The ambition of treacherous people traps them, man. This devil's in the trap. Okay? He got so much ambition. He'll try to be like the Most High and, try to get more control and you see, set up a whole digital system and, all right, putting C-hip in everyone. His mind, he's full of ambition. Okay? But the Lord got him to where he's falling into the snare of his own ambition, man. Okay? The Lord got the devil making these plans and making these moves that's going to lead to the same outcome. These devils going into captivity and the visual being done away with. All right? And Esau can't help himself, man. He's snared by his wicked ambition, man. Okay? And this load of trying to pull this off, you can tell is weighing on him, man. Okay? So, yeah, just wanted to get into that, man. We're seeing the symptoms of collapse. All right. So much more, we can get into. All right. But hey, that's why, another day, another lesson, So, Lord will, you brothers and sisters edified. All right. Down goes Babylon, man. Okay. This place is being, dismantled right before our eyes, man. For a righteous kingdom, to be established, So, Lord, will you, brothers and sisters, edified till next time I say Shalom. Kwam Yashala, Abba, Soon Shalom.